Jesus as a boy in the temple. A bedtime story. Luke 2 verses 41 to 52. In the small and sun-warmed village of Nazareth, nestled among the rolling hills of Galilee, there lived a boy named Jesus. He was 12 years old, the age when a Jewish boy was old enough to make the great pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to stand in the courts of the temple, and to feel the full weight and wonder of his people's faith. Every year, his mother Mary and his father Joseph made this journey, as their parents had done before them, and their parents before that, stretching back through generations of faithful hearts. But this year was different. This year, Jesus was old enough to truly understand where they were going, and why it mattered so deeply. The morning they set out, the air still carried the cool breath of the night. Neighbors gathered in the narrow lanes, bundles on their backs, children darting between the legs of the adults. The caravan swelled as it moved, families joining from side roads, voices rising in greeting, the whole procession filling the path southward like a slow, warm river. Jesus walked among them, listening to the older men speak of the temple, of the songs they would sing, of the lamb and the unleavened bread, and the ancient story of how God had delivered their people from slavery in Egypt long, long ago. He took in every word with a quiet, watchful stillness that was particular to him, the kind of listening that goes deeper than the ears. Jerusalem appeared to them on the third day of walking, shining above the horizon like something dreamed into being. Its walls were pale gold in the afternoon light, and above everything else rose the temple, vast and white and gleaming, with colonnaded courts and great stone steps worn smooth by the feet of countless pilgrims. Jesus stood and looked at it for a long moment before the caravan carried him forward through the city gates and into the noise and color of the festival crowd. For 7 sacred days, the family celebrated the Passover. They ate the bitter herbs and the unleavened bread. They sang the psalms that their ancestors had sung. They gave thanks and prayed and remembered. And every day Jesus moved through the temple courts with his eyes wide open, pausing to listen whenever the teachers of the law gathered to speak, drawn toward their discussions the way a candle flame is drawn upward, naturally, inevitably, as though it cannot help itself. When the feast was over and the caravan assembled itself for the journey home, the streets of Jerusalem were full of the cheerful bustle of departure. Mary and Joseph fell in with their neighbors, talking easily, children weaving through the crowd the way they always do, appearing and disappearing, running ahead, lingering behind. It was only when the caravan made camp that first evening, and the fires were lit, and the sky deepened into purple and then black above them, that Mary began to look for Jesus in earnest. She asked a cousin. She asked a neighbor's wife. She moved through the camp, softly calling his name, checking each family's circle of firelight. Joseph asked the men. They looked among the young people, the children, the older boys who sometimes traveled in their own loose group. But no one had seen Jesus since the city. He was not in the caravan. He had not come home with them. Without a word of hesitation, Mary and Joseph turned back toward Jerusalem, back along the road they had just walked, back toward the glittering city now dark against the night sky. For 3 days they searched. 3 long, aching days through Jerusalem's winding streets and crowded marketplaces, asking strangers, looking into courtyards, calling his name in places that gave back only the echo of their own voices. For any parent, 3 such days would feel like a lifetime. And then they found him. On the 3rd day, in the last place, or perhaps the only place, they should have thought to look first, the temple. There in the great columned court sat Jesus, surrounded by the teachers of the law. These were learned men who had given their whole lives to studying the sacred scrolls, men whose wisdom was known throughout Judea. And they were leaning forward, every one of them, their brows drawn together not in confusion but in astonishment, because the boy at the center of their circle was asking questions they had never quite heard asked that way before, and giving answers that seemed to come from a depth of understanding that no 12 years of living could fully account for. Mary's relief broke open in her voice when she reached him. "Son," she said, and her words carried every hour of those 3 frightened days. "Why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been searching for you with such sorrow." Jesus looked at her with calm, gentle eyes. Not defiant, not careless, but settled in a way that was difficult to name. "Why were you searching for me?" he asked softly. "Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" It was a quiet answer. 7 small words. But they held within them something vast and unfolding, something that Mary felt in her chest even as her mind reached for the meaning and could not quite close its fingers around it. She did not fully understand what he meant. Neither did Joseph. But Mary was a woman who had always known how to keep things, how to hold a mystery carefully, like a bird in cupped hands, and carry it close until the day its meaning opened. So she kept his words in her heart, and they walked together out of the temple and back into the light of the day. Jesus went with them willingly. He walked beside them on the long road back to Nazareth, back through the hills and the dry river beds, back to the village where the fig trees grew in the courtyard and the smell of sawdust drifted from Joseph's workshop. He was obedient and good. He helped with the work of the household, grew stronger through each season, learned the craft of his father's hands. The neighbors saw him grow, season by season, year by year, and they said among themselves that there was something about that boy, something they could not quite name. Warmth, a stillness, a sense when you were near him that you were standing in good light. And so the years passed over Nazareth the way years do in a small and peaceful place, gently, unhurriedly, one harvest following another. Jesus grew in wisdom. He grew in stature. And those who knew him felt the grace of God resting on him the way the late afternoon sun rests on the hills, steadily, generously, making everything it touches glow. This is where his story truly begins. Not with a great announcement or a sudden miracle, but here, in a temple courtyard among wondering teachers, beside a mother whose heart held more than she could yet say. In the quiet and ordinary years of a boy growing up in a carpenter's house, learning, working, waiting. All of it purposeful. All of it held in the hands of something larger and more loving than any of them could yet see. Close your eyes now, and let the story rest with you. The hills of Nazareth are quiet. The stars are out. And all is well,